Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Sustainable Materials Management Webinar Series, a joint effort between the National Recycling Coalition and the Pennsylvania Recycling Market Center. My name is Wayne Bowen. I'm the Program Manager for the Recycling Market Center and will serve as your moderator today. Before we get started with the presentation, we'd like to extend a special thanks to Bob Hollis of the Mobius Network for providing the webinar management software for this series. The focus of today's webinar is on carpet recycling and stewardship. Our presenters today are Heidi Sanborn and Doug Kobold, who I'll introduce in a moment. Following their presentation, we will conduct a question and answer session. If you have a question or comment, please use the GoToWebinar dialog box located in the control panel on your screen. You may also use the dialog box to request assistance if you're experiencing technical difficulties during the webinar. Please note that an edited version of this webinar will be made available for viewing via YouTube links on the National Recycling Coalition and Pennsylvania Recycling Market Center websites. The presentation slides can also be obtained using the handout upload feature on your webinar control panel. And now I'd like to introduce our presenters. Heidi Sanborn has been a trailblazer in the solid waste industry for over 25 years as a consultant, then advisor to the chair of the California Integrated Waste Management Board, then the director of the California Product Stewardship Council from 2007 to 2018 to promote extended producer responsibility. Heidi has become an internationally recognized leader and driver for product stewardship programs all over the world. CPSC was also successful. They started the National Stewardship Action Council in 2015 to promote a circular economy nationally using product stewardship and EPR. Doug Kobold has worked in the solid waste and recycling industry for over 25 years. Prior to the California Product Stewardship Council, he worked at Sacramento County as Waste Management Program Manager in Business Development and Special Waste Division. He served on the Northern California SWANA Board of Directors as Chapter President and currently as Treasurer on the California Legislative Task Force. He was the Chair of CPSC and was the founder and President of the National Stewardship Action Council, and he was the Chair on the CA Mattress Advisory Committee and as a committee member of the California Carpet Recycling Advisory Committee. And now I'm going to turn it over to Doug and Heidi.
Thanks so much, Wayne. We really appreciate being here. I'm Heidi Sanborn, the now director of the National Stewardship Action Council and the senior advisor to Doug and CPSC. And we really appreciate you all being on the webinar today. I think we have over 120 people, and we have a broad group of stakeholders from local governments to recyclers to even carpet mills and the Carpet America Recovery Effort representatives. So we thank you all for joining us. Our goal today is to educate you on the California experience, which is really the first experience in the world of regulating carpet to try and drive a circular economy. And we'd like to share what has worked, what has not worked, and how we can help anyone in the country who is interested in working on a circular carpet stewardship program, because a lot of what we've learned has been through the School of Hard Knocks, and we'd like to make it easier for you. So I'm going to turn it over to Doug. He's going to go over a lot of the early part of our experience with the California Product Stewardship Council, and then turn it over to me, and I'll close it out on the National Stewardship Action Council side. Doug?
Thank you, Heidi. I wanted to thank everyone for joining us. Good morning if you're over near the West Coast, or good afternoon if you're over on the East Coast. And sort of somewhere in the middle. I brought up our CPSC mission just for an opportunity for you to see what we hold dear and important to us, and I'll give you a second to read that real quick. I don't want to belabor it with my voice, so I'll transfer in a minute.
I would say, though, that the key is to reduce public costs and drive improvements in product design. That's ultimately what our goal is.
Thanks, Heidi. Okay, so we're a small, scrappy organization of 5 currently. And I'm the executive director. Heidi is our senior advisor, former executive director, and then we have 3 great staff members that support us very significantly and make us that much more successful. We have a 14-member board, and that board is made up of local government representatives and industry representatives as well. So we've got a great spectrum of folks that are very engaged and help us a great deal to make this, continue to make California Product Stewardship Council a successful organization. Why did we form back in 2007? we were seeing bans without a plan, and local governments were absorbing the cost of those bans. For example, electronic waste, cathode ray tubes, or CRTs, were banned from landfilling with no plan, and local governments began to eat the cost of $200 to $300 per ton to deal with those unfunded mandate. So that was one of many drivers that drove local governments to come to band together and create CPSC, or request that CPSC be formed. And then, of course, Heidi was one of the co-founders of CPSC and the executive director. So we all owe a great debt of thanks to Heidi and her co-sponsor for getting this organization going.
So I'll turn it over. Who is NSAC? A lot of us, you were probably wondering, you might not have heard of us yet. We're only 3.5 years old, but the National Stewardship Action Council was formed basically because we could not help people in other parts of the country. We were being so successful in California. We're having requests from people like you all across the country, and we had no vehicle to help. So we formed the National Stewardship Action Council as a 501c4, meaning we can parachute into any state and help lobby a bill, help create a bill, work with our business partners, and advocate for a fair sharing of responsibility and drive a circular economy, which is actually our vision, is the United States attains a circular economy. And we like to collaborate. Obviously, legislation is the last resort, but often we have to go there, sometimes with industry, sometimes against, but we prefer collaboration overall. And we do believe there's a way to get there that's constructive instead of destructive. So do I do the slides? So our NSAC board is chaired by David Stitzall out of Washington, D.C., who actually worked with the Northwest Product Stewardship Council for quite a while, Patty Garbarino from Insanitary Service, Tim Goncharoff from Santa Cruz County is a real leader in EPR locally, and Constance Hornig, who is a legal scholar and an expert in waste management. And these are the rest of our board members. And we are looking for more board members, so if anybody's interested, please let me know, and I'd love to talk to you about it. So this is the old way. Turn it over to them.
So basically, in the old way, manufacturers produced the product, we bought it, and the local governments bore the cost of landfilling it or responsibly managing it if it wasn't landfillable material. So, but there was basically nothing for the manufacturers to do to change their design to make it more green and more environmental.
It was cradle to grave.
Yeah. And now the new way is we're trying to voluntarily first get manufacturers to step up to the table and take responsibility for the end of their life for their products. One of the successful programs we've gotten so far voluntarily was our Refill Your Fun, where we had a manufacturer who designed a refillable 1-pound propane cylinder that could be refilled for up to 12 years, approximately 70 times, and replace the single-use propane cylinders that are out on the market today that are costing somewhere between $5 to $10 per unit to recycle, and typically the receiving entity gets that cost. So we're trying to get away from this cradle to grave to go to a cradle to cradle type of environment using the circular economy and closed loop like we've talked about so far.
I could say in the pictures, the paint is at the top. Obviously, that was one of the first stewardship programs in California. And then also the Ditto Hangers is a company out of Oakland that we gave an award to for green design. They actually are trying to get rid of plastic and wood hangers, which even the wood has lacquer and toxins in them. But this is made out of press board. So it's just it's wonderful to be able to support industries that lead the way on green design.
So CalRecycle, which is our state agency over solid waste, created a strategic directive that envelops EPR and this cradle-to-cradle type of producer responsibility. And so it's available on the CalRecycle website if you want to look it up. But they've embraced going in this direction rather than just cradle-to-grave.
So they want producer finance and producer managed systems. And we hope that if your state agencies do not have that right now, we'd encourage you to look at Strategic Directive 9 in California and encourage your agencies to do that. So what does EPR really mean? EPR is an environmental and economic management policy used widely around the world. There's currently over 380 schemes, they call them in Europe, the programs, where the costs are shifted from government to the product producers and users. Manufacturers obviously will design, fund, and promote and manage their products at end of life, and the programs recycle and or safely dispose of unwanted products, and they're supposed to be obviously efficient and cohesive, privately managed programs. But there's a lot of nuances that matter, and so we're going to talk about that now to make sure that we're all on the same information page before we get into the carpet program.
Okay, so Heidi and I, there was a lot of confusion about what is extended producer responsibility and product stewardship. So we created this, what we call the EPR product stewardship spectrum, shades of green, as Heidi likes to call it, and to kind of give people an idea as to where does the responsibility truly lie. And so these are all California programs that have been passed in legislation or voluntarily. We got one voluntarily one. And where they lie on the spectrum. So on the far left, you have the extended producer responsibility, where the producers are primarily responsible. There's some shared responsibility for dealing with the products, but primary costs are borne by the producer in hopes that it'll change them to more green design. So if they figure if they have to take it back and deal with it at the end of life, they're going to change it to make it easier. And then you got the far right of the spectrum, which is where the local governments or the consumers end up bearing the cost of the recycling of the materials. And so we just wanted to give folks an idea as to where this really truly lies. So there is not this interchange between the EPR and product stewardship. They are truly different programs and different funding mechanisms behind them.
And to just give you an example, for example, on the far left, the thermostats, the medicines and sharps that we just passed, the producers design and fund and run the program with oversight from government. That's true EPR in our view. Carpet, paint, and mattresses in California are not EPR. We call them product stewardship programs. They're taking public fee money and handing them to sometimes, actually all of them, I believe, out-of-state industry groups. And we think there's a lot of risk in that. We've experienced it with carpet and actually with all three programs, but carpet is the one that we're having the most issues with. And we want to make sure everybody understands the differences and why we don't really recommend this model anymore. And we have a lot of concerns. They can be fixed, but they're very, very problematic, and we'll explain why. So this is the Mercury Thermostat, which was the first EPR program in California. It was passed in 2008, the first bill that we did with Sierra Club. And it was a true producer responsibility program. And now they're getting $5 rebates for each Mercury thermostat. But the reason we wanted to say this is truly the producers run it, the producers pay for it. They've had tons of compliance issues. The state, it was new to running EPR systems. It was late getting the regulations out and late getting enforcement going. But it seems to be working fairly well now. But of course, it's been 10 years, and we still aren't collecting as many as we should have. So it was almost kind of a test case in California for getting the agencies to even understand how to oversee these programs. Then we passed this year, after paint, carpet, and mattresses, a few other things, SB 212. This is also a pure EPR approach. So it's medicines and needles, and they're different programs. So I call it a mini framework approach, where the medicine program is one program, the sharps program is another program, and it does have some changes to it based on our lessons from the earlier bills, such as, this is extremely important, and I can get into details if people ask in the questions, but it requires that the stewardship organization be an IRS 501c3 for public benefit. The reason that's really important is for transparency and also for accountability, and to ensure that the money is not being used for lobbying or fighting. It has to be used for the public's benefit. That's a very big difference than a C4 or a C6, and we can get into details if anybody is interested. And product stewardship programs in California, these are the ones that have the visible fee. paint, which is a little bit different because they have to pass on the fee to the consumer, but it could be visible or invisible. The mattress and carpet programs are really true product stewardship, where it's the advanced disposal fee, but instead of going to government, it goes straight to the industry association or the stewardship organization. And in these cases, it's the Mattress Recycling Council and the Carpet America Recovery Effort. And those have been problematic a little bit for the structure, and we're going to talk about that in a bit. But if you aren't careful, like what happened in California, the fee money that's given to Paint Care, for example, was used to sue the state because they didn't like the oversight of the regulations. It also paid for the defense of Cal Recycle, and then it paid for the appeal. We thought that was wrong, and so when we fixed the carpet bill, we actually changed that so the carpet group could not use the fee money to sue the state because they didn't like the oversight. We also made sure that they could not sue the state or pay fines with that money. So those are some of the very important details that matter.
Well, one other detail on that is also that Paint Care, we believe their interests were positive and in the right direction, actually invested the money, some of the money, their reserves, in stock market, and actually lost the money, most of it, but they gained it back. But the fact is they risked money that wasn't theirs to risk to begin with. So that was another thing that we put in there to make sure they couldn't just invest the money in any kind of risky share.
So what we believe is when it's a visible fee, it's consumer fee money, and it should be treated like public money instead of private money. Another example is on mattresses. They actually have clauses in contracts with recyclers that's a non-defamation clause, and we have an issue with that too because one of our big mattress recyclers has had some serious problems, and as advisory committee members, we weren't finding out because they had put a defamation clause in there. And again, do we want to give public money to stewardship organizations run by industry groups that are typically out of our state to then do private contracts and to benefit themselves? And we've even seen now intellectual property right ownership, where they actually use our public money to give grants out and then claim that it's their intellectual property. We have issues with that too. So these are the kinds of things we want to be very, very careful to avoid in the future. So on carpet, the carpet stewardship program was the first literally in the world that we know of. We've looked everywhere and nobody else anywhere in the world has taken on carpet. Now, why did we take on carpet? Because the EPA had come out with a report saying that carpet was number 4 greenhouse gas producer that things being landfilled. In California, it was almost 4% of our waste stream. It's mostly plastic in the United States. It's got microfiber issues in the water. It's got toxins issues. It's got volume, hard to handle. I mean, we can go on and on about why, and it can be circular. So it really was an opportunity. Unfortunately, the industry was not happy about it, and they were very, very good about lobbying. And we didn't sponsor the bill. They didn't sponsor the bill. The speaker did there in the middle. And while we helped pass it, there was a lot of issues we knew from the beginning, but we also felt it was important to get something done on carpet. So we did. So I'm there with Speaker Perez, who passed the bill, and on his left was his staff, Pete Price. So
one thing before we leave this slide, as a result of this legislation being passed, one of the concerning facts we found out about later on was that outside of California, if you're a processor of carpet materials and you're receiving a subsidy from the stewardship organization, you had to sign an agreement with them, and one of the clauses in that agreement was that you would not support EPR legislation in any other state, because if you did, your contract would be null and void, and you would have to return all the subsidy monies that you received through the program. So that's a serious concern of ours that something like that would be put into an agreement.
Yeah, that does not feel good at all, and it also sends a signal to us that they really don't want producer responsibility passing in any other state.
So with 10 years of doing this, actually, we're on year 11. We're working through year 11. We believe that EPR is the best program. It's the one that helps to get us closer to that circular economy, closer to green design. Product stewardship with a visible fee, not the best option. It's fraught with issues. We're learning with every bill, with every program what not to do and what not to do in these programs. But if you can get EPR, that is your best alternative, because then you know what the reality is, the industry that is being charged with taking care of their products gets to run their own program. They have some oversight by the state government, but they're in charge. They can decide how to pass the costs on, et cetera, and who to pass them on to with consideration, without doing any kind of damage to smaller groups. But it's their program to run. Whereas if you get the stewardship plan, if you get a stewardship model going with consumer fees, as Heidi mentioned, we consider that to be public money. It should be treated as public money, and with all the caveats and restrictions thereof.
I would just say, basically, when they pay, in my opinion, they earn the right to run the program. When they don't pay, we're not sure that that should continue anymore, because it's just really had a lot of problems. So.
Okay, so yeah, the carpet stewardship program, this bill was not the model, for a number of reasons, because we've had, we started off with an 8% recycling rate before the program started. It's gotten to maybe 16% now, I believe, after
8 years.
After 8 years since the signing of the bill. Not a lot of progress there. The money, as Heidi had mentioned, was being used for in other programs, was being used for improperly in our minds, and so that original bill didn't have that oversight and control on the money. CARE, the stewardship organization, didn't have to listen to anybody else if they didn't want to. They did form a California Council on Carpet Recycling, and then prior to AB 1158, which we'll talk about shortly, and which established an advisory committee. They did have that group, but and I was part of that group, and so it's helpful, but it was not where we needed to get to.
Meaning, well, we should be specific too, I think, is to tell you that the advisory council had no real authority.
Right.
And so we kind of fixed that in AB 1158.
Yes, we did. And so, and then one of the last things was that, before the advisory committee stepped in, the monies were being used for cap and kiln for burning materials rather than higher and better use, which is trying to stay with a waste management hierarchy of reduce, reuse, recycle, and then go on from there. So,
and the real key point is that there was no bridge plan. So they were taking, in all these programs, we're concerned and we want to fix this, where visible fee is handed to an industry group or a stewardship organization, and there is no plan. If that group loses control of the program, whether it's revoked or disapproved or what have you, how do you get that state's money back? And how do you ensure your local infrastructure, your collectors and recyclers are not harmed during this transition period? That needs to be thought through in legislation, and it wasn't in the early bills. So from now on, we will be working on that to fix all the programs. And then again, allowing the fee money to subsidize burning of carpet, which is also unacceptable to us.
So when you get the presentation, if you download the presentation, this is the hot link on that picture there. We call that the Carpet Mountain of Sacramento. This was in my jurisdiction during my time that this mountain formed. It'll be in the article, but basically 17,000, I think 900 tons of material got stockpiled and was ultimately hauled to a landfill, because the company that was running their carpet recovery program, getting subsidies from CARE, was not able to dispose of this. They had no funding for disposal, so they stockpiled and left this mountain for the landowner, because they were leasing the property. And I believe the cleanup came to about $2 to $2.5 million to clean this mess up. So this was definitely no magic carpet ride.
Yeah, this was a really egregious example of how when there isn't enough oversight or requirements, the public fee money was given to this, what group was called the carpet collectors, which was very appropriate because that's all they did, and left Sacramento County with a big giant mess. And the people that sent carpet there thought they were getting diversion credit and did not. And that is just completely unacceptable. There was no double check. There was no audit program. I've been told by CARE that has been fixed since then. But to me, they would be a lot more careful with their money than they've been with our public fee money. That should never have happened. Also, we just saw this yesterday, so we put it up, that there's carpet piles in Maine. And this is, so it's not unique to California by any means. And so it was in the Bangor Daily News that they would be able to recycle the materials if the fibers were separate, but entwined they constituted a mixed waste stream. So everybody, I think, around the country has the same problem with carpet. It's bulky, it's hard to handle, it's multiple material types, and until recently they weren't stamped on the back to tell you what fiber material it was. You need a very expensive machine to tell you what it was to sort it. But we've got a national problem with carpet, and we need to fix it. So in our state, what we did is after the 2010 bill passed, which again, we were not able to control the language. We did our best, but a lot of mistakes were made. It wasn't our bill, but we did control the cleanup legislation. That was AB 1158. It was passed in October of last year. And those are our two authors there. We were very, very happy to pass the bill to clean up a lot of the original flaws from the 2010 bill. So key elements, again, were that we made an advisory committee mandatory. The stewardship organization must respond to any comments and criticisms that the advisory committee gives, and they have to respond in writing if they're not going to address them and why. And that's all public to the public in CalRecycle. The recycling rates and dates were set. So by 2020, they have to get to 24% recycling rate. The previous bill had continuous and meaningful improvement, which is very nebulous and hard to enforce for the state. It also prevents the fee money from being used to pay the fines to the state, as we've discussed. Mandates the trades, meaning the unions, get funding for the apprenticeship programs. And the reason is that they're the ones that are primarily touching the carpet and install and pulling up the old carpet. They need to be trained. They need to understand the program, and they need to be a key part of redirecting the carpet to the recycling collection centers. So that was part of the bill. And then prevents diversion credit for the burning of carpet. Those are just a few of the key elements, but it did more than that. I will say this, it did not do everything we wanted, because some of what we wanted might trigger a 2/3 vote, and we thought it was very important to prevent the burning and the fee money from being used to pay the fines that they were starting to get last year. So we were very happy to get the bill as it was. Now, compliance under the new bill, AB 1158. Is that stewardship plans are submitted to CalRecycle and the advisory committee to review. CARE submitted a plan for this year through 2022 in March. The advisory committee made 21 recommendations to them. CARE resubmitted a plan that did not address the suggested changes. The CARE plan was disapproved in May of this year. CARE has resubmitted a plan in September. It was conditionally approved in October. And we have the video of the hearing. I can tell you that there's still a lot of concerns. A lot of information that CalRecycle has asked for has still not been provided. And CARES has, I think, until September of next year to finish providing it all. But one of the key things is, how do you fund the program? And is the fee enough? And is CARE providing transparently the calculations they make on how to say that, yes, we can do this program that we're saying we're going to do for the amount of fee we're collecting. And that hasn't been clear, and that's been an ongoing ask of CalRecycle. The Carpet Advisory Committee, I think, has been very helpful. It formed in January of this year. They held their first meeting in late January. This is a picture of one of the meetings. You can see people pursing their brow and looking serious. I can tell you that these meetings were very intense, very helpful. They get really good input, I think. It's a broad stakeholder group, and they met again in July, and meeting today. In fact, they're having another meeting today. So it's a really solid group of people trying their best to give good input. And the role of the committee is that they're appointed by CalRecycle and the legislature. They provide comments and recommendations on the plans, amendments to the plans, and on the annual reports they submit. And Carpet Stewardship Organization must respond in writing on how they address the committee's recommendations, and if not, why not. That's very much more transparent and powerful for that committee than the voluntary group that was formed before AB 1158. So some of the issues being discussed by our current advisory committee: is the program focusing enough on source reduction first, reuse second, then recycling, which is what our waste hierarchy in California states? Is the program incentivizing products with the highest recyclability more than those who are put on the market that really aren't that recyclable or downcycled? Investment in green design and reducing toxics, what's happening with that? In fact, I just found out that a carpet that I wanted to buy was a new non-toxic carpet has apparently been sprayed, all of it, with Stainmaster, which I know is a toxic chemical, and I don't want it, and I can't buy any of this carpet because it was made to have no toxics. They're spraying all of it with toxics. And are there metrics and goals for the program objective?
I wanted to expand on number 2 a little bit more, just because there's been a lot of discussion about highest recyclability, and what's meant there is that if you make a carpet that costs a high amount to recycle at the end of life, and then I make a carpet that's really cheap to recycle at the end of life, I should be the one being incentivized to continue what I'm doing, or in the reverse, the person who made the carpet that's really costly to recycle at the end of life should be paying a higher cost to help them decide how green of a design they really want. And so that's what highest recyclability is really about.
It's about getting to a true circular economy, because one of our concerns is that if there are toxins, how are we going to safely recycle it too and not expose people to those? So one of the issues that keeps coming up is toxics in carpet. There's been several reports that have come out in the last 2 years. One of them in 2017 about eliminating toxics in carpet, the lessons for the future of recycling. That was done by the Healthy Building Network, and they found 44 toxic chemicals in carpet. Then another one just came out in March, and by a consulting group, they found 59 toxic substances in carpets in the EU. And they're talking too about how do we get circularity in the carpet system if there's all these chemicals in the products and people aren't clear that they're in there. So they're not aware of making the decisions about it. And of course, see a picture of the baby on the carpet, and that's concerning if it's been sprayed with Stainmaster and some of these other products, according to these reports. Now, we don't verify, we are not the PhD scientists that verify all this. We're just sharing what we've been told. You can do your own research, but this again is a graphic about some of the toxins in carpet that was done by the Healthy Building Network, reproductive toxins and all kinds of things. And then another report just came out. This is, I believe, from Changing Markets and some other European companies and organizations. But this report reveals the presence of hazardous toxics in carpet too, including suspected carcinogens, endocrine disruptors, and reproductive toxic substances. So they don't have any place in the circular economy for the reasons that are obvious. And there are demonstrated companies that have non-toxic alternatives. So then they did test some of them that didn't have any toxics. So we're trying to encourage more of that and less of the other. And we're really excited about Aquafil, because Aquafil is a company based out of Italy. I'm there in the picture in the middle with, to my left is Giulio Bonazzi, the president of Aquafil, and to his right, Franco Rossi, who is the president of USA Aquafil. And they designed actually just using heat and steam really without any toxic chemicals, a way to take nylon 6 products, whether it's fishing nets or fabrics or whatever, and they make it back into a pure pellet of nylon 6 that can be recycled over and over and over again. It's a zero emissions plant. They put the first one in Phoenix. They've got another one coming into Woodland, just north of Sacramento here, thanks to the bill. And they're looking for other places to site across the country. And this is the kind of benefit you can have if you do decide to do carpet, that industries will follow, and green industries like Aquafil. So we're very, very excited about this. They actually, Aquafil is such a leader, they actually pay fishermen sometimes to go out and harvest the old rogue fish nets that are out there, the ghost nets that are just floating around killing the wildlife, and they pull them in and actually have cleaned them and make them into these pellets.
I believe California just passed a law banning gill nets.
That's right. So we're going to have a lot of gill nets, and some of them will be nylon, and hopefully they can go through the Aquafil plant. So there's a lot more we could talk about with carpet. We'll take some questions, but both California Product Stewardship Council is calpsc.org and the NSAction.us. Our websites, they talk about carpet and what we've done. And there's a lot of information. I call them kind of wonky web pages. They're not designed for the general public generally. They're more targeted to you, the people in our industry, about the details of how we do these things, what's happened, what are the fixes, et cetera. We just want you to know that our websites are there. We're very active on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Twitter. And as new studies come out, we've even got listservs by product type. So if you join either organization, you can be on these listservs and get this information directly from us. And so what can you do to help push a circular economy for carpet? I would say partner with us. I mean, obviously you can fund us. We can work with you on grants and projects that are either research or, pilot projects for designing programs of the future, getting more data. We can ensure that EPR is in your legislative platform, whether it's a local government or a state government. Ensure your legislators understand what EPR is and the difference in product stewardship and EPR. Include producer responsibility in your procurement policies. So when you go out for the next bid on electronics, for example, or carpet, ask for, give higher points to the less toxic, more recyclable carpet, or the carpet that has a second life. Some of these carpets are made from recycled water bottles, but there's really very little we can do with them after they're used, so it's kind of downcycling. So is that really what we're looking for? Is that truly circular? Then EPR in your zero waste and solid waste planning documents, explaining to your legislators and your managers what producer responsibility looks like and how you can be part of this momentum to a circular economy. And then inviting us to present at meetings, conferences, and other events. I just got back from Texas where I spoke at the STAR conference, and I was so glad to be there. We want to share what we know and also learn from you about what you're doing and what's working and what isn't.
And I want to emphasize number 3 a little bit there, coming from local government, and Heidi was very instrumental statewide, getting, I believe, 139 resolutions for supporting EPR. Sacramento County had one of those, and so whenever something came up that we needed to comment on or testify on, we had the ability, without having to go back to our board and seek permission to take a position on a bill that involved EPR, we were able to go do it right away, which is timely because these bills, as I've seen, move very quickly. They change very quickly. You could have a position on a bill, and a week later it could be changed, and you've got a month process, and you're not going to.
A day later.
Yeah, yeah. So it's very important to get that into your platform so that you have the advanced authority to speak on behalf of your agency or your organization when it comes to those type of bills and any kind of language that's in there.
That's an excellent point, because I can tell you firsthand, I mean, we literally sometimes have seen bills amended twice in a day. And if local governments are always hogtied and can't weigh in on any version, I can tell you who is being very agile and weighing in. It's the industry side. So we've got to free our hands up and be able to move a lot faster. So
this one of these last slides here is where we can assist businesses, associations, cities, counties, and states because of what we've experienced. And here's Heidi testifying at one of the recent workshops on carpet, and it was a very contentious workshop. So what we hope to do is help you to avoid these type of contentious meetings later on down the line when your legislation is implemented and your programs are operating.
And I can tell you that we've just learned so much about all of this, and we applied it to our negotiations with the pharmaceutical industry to pass probably one of the hardest bills in our industry ever, honestly, to have both medicines and needles dealt with at the same time. That it had $50,000 a day fines in it. The industry agreed to it because we figured out kind of the secret sauce, and we know how to work with these folks, and we know how to negotiate. And we feel like we want to just share that because we want this country to move towards a circular economy. We need it. We don't have enough markets. So we don't want to hide what we know. We want to share it and hopefully benefit the entire country. So this is our contact information. You can call Doug or myself. Our emails are there. And again, we really thank you for being on. We hope this was helpful, and there's a lot of other information too, but I think we'll end it there for today and then just take questions. Wayne?
All right, thank you, Heidi, and thank you, Doug, for those great presentations. So we're now going to field some questions from our audience. Again, if you have a question, please enter them in the GoToWebinar dialog box. We do have a couple questions up already. So this attendee said he'd be more interested in the status of recycling process and its economics. So is there anything you can provide on that end?
Yep. For example, with Aquafil and the Nylon 6, there's plenty of market. We need, the problem we're having with carpet, and this is very much a chicken and egg sort of scenario, is we don't have infrastructure to collect it cleanly and keeping it dry and rolling it properly in most of the country. And where they did have it, we in California, because we're now subsidizing the recycling, our carpet is displacing your carpet in your facilities. And we don't want that. We want your carpet in your facilities and our carpet in our facilities and not have to ship carpet, which is very heavy, all over the country, back and forth, back and forth. That adds a lot of cost to the system, a lot of emissions. And we want to see everybody benefit. So when you pass any legislation, you're getting the infrastructure near you. So there is, it really kind of goes by polymer. But nylon 6, we're getting more and more market. That's not a problem. But for PET, for example, very few markets for PET. Almost nowhere to put it. I'm hearing it's just stacking up everywhere. It's a cheaper carpet. It's made from recycled water bottles. But again, it's really just downcycled if we don't have another market for it. Is there any other, I know there's polypropylene and...
Yeah, polypropylene still has a good market value. So it's primarily your nylons and your polypropylene that are the ones that got value. Other than that, there isn't much. And then one of the other problems we're finding out is we're hearing about mixed fibers, where in the face fibers there's multiple resin types, which is creating problems because what do you do with that material if you can't tease it apart? So that's a significant issue that's coming up.
Although I can give Claire some credit here on the, they've hired Mike Tinney, who's an expert in California on developing markets, and they've done a really nice job with some of the grants to create new markets. One of them has been taking the backing of carpet, which is basically dirt. They call it calcium carbonate. It's very heavy, and they're finding new ways to use it. For example, one of them is to take recycled paint that is not usable, mixing it with a calcium carbonate and coming up with stepping stones. That was very creative. And we encourage that sort of thing, but there's not enough yet. We hope with more, bills in other states and more focus on markets that really industries, and this is a signal we want to send to every industry. If you send us stuff that we have no market for, it's going to start boomeranging back. You're going to end up starting to pay for this at some point because we don't have the money and we can't deal with it. And people don't want new landfills and new incinerators. So this is something that industry, we can all work on together and partner on pilot projects for collection, for recycling, new markets. But then again, I would also say to local government, if you're not being careful with your procurement policies and asking for recycled content carpet, then you're part of the problem, because we have to send market signals and reward the companies that are going out there and doing a great job on green design. If we don't, no company will see the value in going that direction. So it's up to all of us, and I'd be happy to help anybody who wants to buy carpet is going out for an RFP to look at that. And I can also tell you that San Francisco just developed a very, very strict procurement policy for carpet, and we can send you a link to that, and I believe we put it on our website too. I'll double check, but if anybody would like that link, just if you can't find it, just email me and I'll send it to you.
Okay, do any other stewardship programs in California require continuous improvement other than carpet?
Nope.
Yeah, no, that was the only one, and that has been kind of a problem. That's another one of those problems, which is continuous and meaningful improvement. You have to wrap your arms around that and try to define it appropriately. That's why we prefer dates and rates.
over that kind of a nebulous clause. So, for example, 1158 said by 2020, the carpet stewardship organization will get to 24% recycling. That is something they have to meet.
And I will say that we picked that number not because I thought that was high enough. We picked that number because that's what the industry said they could do. And then they went and opposed the bill and said they couldn't do it when they'd already said they could do it. So this is the kind of stuff that goes on. And I encourage all of you again, the devil is in the details. They really, really matter in a bill and also in regulations. So, you know, I would encourage you to talk to us if you do plan on taking on carpet, because it's very important.
Yeah.
Know what you're doing.
And that measurement, that 24%, came out of a stewardship plan draft from the stewardship organization as a goal. And so we made it a mandate to try and spurn them along to get this program going. After 8 years of languishing, it's about time it gets going.
Okay, have you considered the idea of a commercial property tax reduction or credit for using recycled content and recyclable carpet?
Yeah, but you know, we're having a really hard time to get any industry to agree to incentives, because they generally just fight and they don't want to tip you off to what would be an incentive. But I mean, we would love to partner with industry groups on things like procurement. I mean, I think it's very important the state and the governments walk the talk and help buy recycled products if the industries are going to be putting them out on the market once we've asked them to do it. And if there's an incentive through tax breaks and other things, we're eager to help them get that, because we want the infrastructure in the U.S. We all need it. As we all know, we're in desperate need of especially plastics markets. So all those things are on the table for us for discussion, absolutely.
Do you face obstacles because a lot of the carpet is manufactured on the East Coast and you're on the West Coast?
I don't think that's it. I think it's not about the where that's the issue. It's about the will. And if the industry lacks will, then there's really nothing. It's really, really hard. It's like pushing mud up a hill.
It is concerning that we do have after all these years, we still have we're getting more infrastructure in California, but the majority of the carpet is still being shipped 3,000 miles away. And it just doesn't make any sense. You're shipping truckloads of material that could be processed here locally, and it's getting better, but it's taken a long time to get there.
Too long.
Okay. All right, I think that's it for the questions. So we're going to close the webinar right now. So again, this webinar, like all the webinars in this series, has been recorded and will be made available via YouTube links on both the National Recycling Coalition and Recycling Market Center websites. Thank you again for joining us, and thank you, Heidi and Doug, for that presentation and answering these questions. And we'll hope everybody will join us for next month's webinar. Please visit the NRC and RMC websites for schedule updates. And have a great day, everybody.
Thank you, Wayne.
Thanks, Wayne.
All right, so long.
Bye.